2 days after Michigan enacted right-to-work legislation barring unions from requiring workers to pay membership dues, the fight could be moving to other states. Washington Post political reporter David Fahrenthold joins us now to discuss the road ahead. But first, I think it's important to understand, because I'm not even sure I understand, how the heck did this happen in a blue state like Michigan?
Well, Michigan we think of as a blue state, and Obama won by a large amount, but the state legislature and the governorship went Republican in 2010, and it's a pretty strongly conservative Republican state legislature. And so there were a lot of ideas sort of stored up there, a lot of passion to do conservative things stored up there. And so what you saw this last election in 2012, the unions went for a big victory. They tried to get a constitutional amendment that protected collective bargaining. It would have been a huge victory for them, and they miscalculated. They lost by a whole lot. And their loss, even in a state that has such a union presence, really empowered the conservatives. They said, well, look, if we can beat them on this, they're weak. Let's go after this thing we really want.
The last high-profile fight was in Wisconsin. It led to a recall election for Scott Walker, which he was able to survive. How is this different than what happened in Wisconsin?
The key thing here is we're talking about two different kinds of unions. The Wisconsin issue is about public sector unions, the unions that represent government employees. In some cases, that means police officers and firefighters. In Wisconsin, it didn't. But it means people that work for the government. What we're talking about in Michigan is all unions, people that work for the private sector, automakers, manufacturers, anything like that. And so it's a much different political sell for someone like Scott Walker to say, look, these people, they're unions, but they're taking money away from you. They're getting money from you, the taxpayer. It's government lobbying itself.
So this was a harder fight, and yet it was won in Michigan. So looking forward, does this mean opening the door in other states?
Well, you'll certainly see a lot of people on the right-to-work side, people that support laws like the one in Michigan. People say, well, if we won in Michigan, where can't we win? Michigan is the heartland of the American labor movement. The problem is that there was sort of a special political circumstance, a lame duck state legislature that made this possible. I spent a lot of yesterday calling other states where the right-to-work people think they have a good path ahead, Montana, Alaska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and in every state there's a pretty good reason to believe there's a roadblock. Even states, I should add, that have Republican governors and Republican legislatures. You saw people like Scott Walker himself yesterday say, look, I just don't want to bring this kind of fight down on my state. I want to focus on something else.
Is there going to be a big push to try to get Governor Rick Snyder out of office in Michigan?
Certainly. I think the unions in Michigan have now sort of targeted him. They're going to target a lot of folks in that state legislature that supported this. And that'll be a real test in 2014 as to whether this was a good idea. Obviously, that's a long way off. A lot of things could happen between now and then, but it's a change in what Snyder campaigned on. Snyder cast himself as sort of not an ideologue, somebody who was a practical person, somebody who would solve problems. Now he's in sort of an opposite position, and so we'll see whether that hurts him in 2014.
Yeah, he initially said he wouldn't pass right to work, but he had his reasons for changing his mind.
That's right.
David, thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.